right?
Mm,
So a
yeah,
lot of times that when we listen, even especially American history, right?
yeah,
We learn the history from the perspective of who the victor is, not the person that lost the war or
that's
that
a
lost the fight or anything like that.
that's a
So
fact.
we only get one sided.
Yeah,
So when you only get one sided and you don't see, okay, what's the other perspective from what that the other individuals, because they have history too. You know what I'm
right,
saying? So
right.
regardless of, perfect example, the Union and the Confederates, right? Confederates have history also that is told from them and their perspective
Yeah,
all the way to the point that the war started, right?
yeah,
After that moment, their history has kind of been disappeared,
that's true.
right? Has disappeared, and we only push the history that comes from the North as and what the Union did according to the United States, right?
Yeah,
So we have to a certain level be able to have discernment, right? And be able to see and acknowledge that there is truth in both ends, right?
facts. Yeah,
It's not your truth, my truth. No, there's actual truth,
on both sides. Yeah,
but on both sides, and
yeah,
then you have to piece them together to see what the whole view of the picture is. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So
yeah. No, that's facts. 'Cause I remember when I first learned that we lost the Vietnam War,
yes,
right?
actually, we never. It was never necessarily a loss of the Vietnam War. It was more of a how you would say the, we didn't lose the Vietnam War, but we weren't winning the Vietnam War. It was a war that we went
Yeah, that
in
sounds like a
there.
loss in America's terms. If
It
we were
is,
losing and
but
then we backed out because we were getting decimated, that kind of feels like that's an L.
well, it is in a view of when we're looking at sports or anything like that.
Yeah,
It is,
yeah,
but you can't tell your soldiers that you lost that war. You know what I'm saying? You can't tell your Marines that you lost a war,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
because then what does that look for their morale or the people that lived through that war, right? You're gonna tell them they lost a war and they're coming home and they're gonna feel less than what they already are,
But
right?
we can't lie. I
So
mean, we can't lie to you.
it's true. We're not supposed to lie,
When we
right?
left, when we left, when we left camp, we said we might win, we may lose. Some of us may lose our lives. You can't come back like it was a toddler, volleyball game
Well,
and everybody's winners and everybody gets a ribbon
and
because you participated.
so the truth I would say with the Vietnam War is what made it so worse, and the reason why we start really pulling out. It was a real, true first televised war.
Mm,
Meaning, is from World War I, World War II, they had cameras, but it was shot, and then you wouldn't see the things 2 3 months later. The Vietnam War was actually in what you per se real time, right? So we like it was the first real time war that the public was able to actually see was really going on and how it affected both Vietnam and the America and how it was decimating those the individuals that were encountered in the war. You know what I'm saying? So
I thought the Civil War was the first one that started happening. So you saying it was the Vietnam War?
no, the Vietnam was the first televised media war.
Hmm.
Like, okay, so when we were, remember when, like, I will say like this, I was in the Iraq War, right?
Okay.
So in 2003, the Iraq War hit. You had the first big battle was the Battle of Fallujah, right? And the media was like right in there, like reporters was right in there in the middle of the gunfights and stuff like that, reporting what's going on in
Wow.
Fallujah.
Wow.
Vietnam was that first type of war.
Wow.
It was that first type of war that actual reporters that were in there doing the reporting in the midst of fighting.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
That's interesting.
that war, because it was viewed by the public and how gruesome it wasn't a pretty view for the U.S. You know what I'm saying?
Not at
So
all.
because at that moment we were considered a superpower.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't a good look for the U.S. at that time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
And
saying?
so that,
So
but that's why I brought up the Vietnam War in regards to the story being told, history being told by the victor,
yeah.
because I always wondered, well, what do the Vietnam books, what do they look like when they talk about the
Yeah.
Vietnam War? Like when they are referencing the Viet Cong and how those groups went to, like, small spaces in an area that they knew very well, and
Hmm.
basically took out American soldiers at will.
Yeah.
I know how our books sound when we talk about Vietnam, but what do your books sound like? Because you guys were more of the victor in that one than us.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But I'm with you though. I'm with you though, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's a very interesting point. Is like how media played a part in different wars and how it's developed. And I didn't know that you were in a that was what, Operation Iraqi Freedom or something like that.
yeah, Operation Iraqi Freedom. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that you were involved in that. So, with that being said, that's a good transition to, like, let's tell people a little bit about you real quick. Tell us where you from, a little bit about your background, if you don't mind, sir.
Okay. So, man, where I start? Well, I'm actually from. I'm Puerto Rican. I was born in Puerto Rico, but my dad is Dominican. So he's from Dominican Republic, the island, pretty much neighborhood.
Okay.
And I was born in Puerto Rico, raised in Dominican Republic, and my family moved from there. They moved to New York, and from New York, I ended up residing at 9 years old all the way till I joined the military in Miami. Right, so Florida is my home. Um, I'm Florida everything in sports, baseball, lifestyle,
I
everything.
know, I
So,
know, Dolphins. I know.
and uh, I joined the military when I was 18, 2004, when I graduated. Did
Okay.
2 tours in Iraq.
Respect, respect.
After I got out, joined the Army Reserve out here in California, and this is where I reside now. Did 6 years in the Army Reserve on that, and while I was doing that, I got my master's and my bachelor's in business and human resources, and I'm a barber. Right, when I got a master, but I ended up being a barber,
Okay.
something that I love.
Yeah.
And man, I get to interact with people all the time from all different ages, backgrounds, different experiences.
Yeah.
So it allows me to, especially when it comes to history, you get to talk to the guys that were actually, I talk to a lot of vets and stuff. So they tell you exactly what's going on for not just their perspective because they lived it, but what's going on during the time they were going through and how America was different then than it is now.
Mm,
And I could compare and contrast
yeah.
so yeah.
So how many years was that you were enlisted in the military?
So total it would be 10 years.
10 years
So
total.
6 years reservist, 4 years active. So total you would say 10 years.
10 years. And what made you make that choice? You said you made that choice in Florida, right?
Yeah. Um Man, I always was intrigued with uniform. The uniform.